Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Maybe I Can podcast. I am your host, Debbie Weiss, and I am excited today that I have Birgitta Visser as my guest. Birgitta is a light empowerment coach, divine channel, and light language healer, delivering messages from the many master teachers across the multiverse to aid humanity. She's survived a lot of trauma, including the abuse as a child, the loss of her father, her stepfather, being bullied in high school, as well as the workplace. She also had a short stint with drugs and having rolled into several dysfunctional relationships, all the with starving herself, battling her many inner demons. Yet she soldiered on. She walked the long and winding road of healing herself, inserting boundaries, and living in a far more authentic version of who she was to who she is now, and ultimately still becoming. It took many years, and truth be told, she's still learning, just like the rest of us. Birgitta now takes all she's learned and helps others to heal. So, welcome. So nice to have you on the show, Birgitta.
Hey, Debbie, thank you so much for having me.
So, as always, my first question to you is, can you tell us about a time where you went from a defeated, I can't attitude to a more empowered, well, maybe I can attitude?
Yeah, there's several points, but the first thing that pops in my head was probably 2009 when I was in my 30s. Was I in my 30s? I'm 74, 84, 94. Yes, in my 30s. And I was living with who's now an ex of mine from the States in Holland. And he was a part-time crack addict, something I had no clue of. And it kind of took me by surprise. And to see someone being addicted to crack cocaine is horrific because they suffer so much from their own trauma. And, this is their only high. And that's the same with alcohol or anything else, to try and escape that pain. But it's only such a short-lived high before they drop back down and they feel that pain again. And I mean, yes, I'd had my stint with drugs when I was younger, but this was like, oh my gosh. And then he landed in bed with the Crips in Holland. And I tried to help him, and he did want to get help, but he didn't have a social security in Holland, like in the US. So that was, the barrier. And when he landed in bed with the Crips in Holland, they held him for ransom because he'd stolen from them. And so I had to help out the police. And I was so numb, so numb. It was like I was in this constant fight or flight mode because I wanted to save him. But at the end of the day, Debbie, we have to save ourselves. Nobody's coming to save us. We have to save ourselves from ourselves, so to speak. But I wanted to fix that broken bird because, of course, I was also a broken bird. But you want to fix another broken bird,
Absolutely.
right? You want to mold them. And so rather than focusing on myself, I focused on him. And my mom got me out of Holland in the space of several days. And, I paid for a rental property in the UK. And then a few days later, because I helped save my ex, the police found him and they deported him back to the US. I got a phone call and I was threatened by the leader of the Crips in Holland, saying that if he would ever find me, he would kill me. And if he ever found my ex, they would never find him because he'd be dead somewhere in a ditch. And many, many years later, by the way, just to fast forward, this guy went on trial. The police had been garnering evidence for many, many years because apparently he was the, what do you call that? Like, he had I almost want to call it like an association of murder for hire. So you could call on him and yeah, they'd never seen something as big as that in Holland. So I think he's behind bars now, but I don't know for how long. And he even made a doku on Netflix where he was in, or one of his gang was in. I can't remember what it was called. It's actually in my book though. But getting back to my ex, it was like I was in the UK and I was numb. I really was. I was feeling so low, and yet I had to keep going. But one night I just downed a whole box of ibuprofens, and all that did was give me a good night's sleep. And I woke up the next day and I was just like, I cannot go on like this anymore. I can't. This is not the way forward. And so my mom said to me, Birgitta, why don't you go see a counselor? I did, actually, Debbie. That was the start, because a counselor did not work for me. Now, many counselors work very differently. This one just listened to my story, and all she said to me was, Birgitta, you'll be fine. You're strong enough. That wasn't going to work for me. That was it. I was just like sitting there like, you know what, I need to do something because this is not working for me. And that's when I took the holistic route. And I thought, you know, I wanted to get better because I was so exasperated, really exasperated. And I rolled into Reiki. And that was actually, as I always say, it was my saving grace. It really, really was. I had to learn so much about myself. I'm still learning, you know, all the experiences accumulated. It's been a roller coaster ride. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't have it any other way. And so this was really from being very defeated and feeling so deflated back to inflating myself, so to speak, and just thinking, yes, I can do this. I can do this, because we're responsible for our own lives. Nobody else. It's not like you're just going to sit on the couch and you're waiting for this magic wand or this fairy godmother to make your life better. No, you have to do the work. You've asked for these challenges, and I've asked for all of them, Debbie, even in my childhood. And people will say, but how can you forgive other people? How can you not, when your existence is love? You are love at your core essence.
Yeah. So it's an unbelievable story. Just picking up on that, I'm just curious. So what happened with your ex, and did you stay in touch, and, you know, what happened
Yes.
on that front? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did stay in touch with him for a while, and sometimes we still email one another. He has turned his life around completely. It took him
Wonderful.
several years. You know, he went through the system in the US quite a few times. And I will always say this to people: it doesn't matter what you've been through. There is really no right or wrong in how you decide to experience life. But as long as you turn your life around, that you understand your experiences and that you don't remain in that victimhood. That's why it's so important to analyze and reevaluate your life, yourself, the characters in your playbook of life. But he's doing very well for himself now, and I can only applaud him for that.
Oh, that's
And I love
wonderful.
him
What
for
a
that.
my well, it's a wonderful, wonderful end. But the other thing that I just am so curious about, how did you live with that threat and that fear? I mean, how do you deal with that on a regular basis? Did you get the impression they were coming to look for you?
Yeah, I had that for a while. I even went to the police here and they just looked at me. We sat down. My mom came with me. I remember this. And I sat down in one of their meeting rooms and they're like, it's out of our jurisdiction. We can't help you.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah.
But he didn't know where I lived. He didn't know where I lived. And I didn't hear from him after that. So thankfully that was okay.
Okay.
But it took me a while because you're still looking over, kind of over your
Exactly.
shoulder
That's just what I was going to say.
automatically. And so that took me a while. But like I said, with Reiki, a lot of the hurt came out, and I studied a lot of other healing modalities, because I was really like a sponge. I always call myself like a SpongeBob. I was absorbing all the knowledge, and eventually, when I was out in Florida, I also started teaching Reiki and some other modalities.
So let's talk about what Reiki is, because I have to tell you personally, I discovered Reiki, I don't even know how many years ago now, probably like 10 or 15 years ago, and didn't know what to expect. You know, it was my first experience with really any type of holistic healing. And I immediately found it so calming. It was just an amazing feeling, considering, again, for somebody who was outside of this whole holistic realm, the fact that it, what did the healer really do? You know what I'm saying? I felt like, well, all she did was either touch me lightly or her hands over her head, my certain parts of my body and whatnot. And, I've had family members who I said, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And they didn't find it that way. I think because
Mhm.
you've got to have that mindset of being open to what's happening, right?
Yes, yes. As long as you don't put I never put an expectation on a healing, but Reiki at the time, what many people don't know is that Reiki came from the Atlantean period. And Dr. Usui was given some of the symbols to use. And he also lived in the Atlantean period, and he fled the floods. It's a very, very interesting story. But Reiki, to me at the time, was very, very powerful. It really calmed me down and it brought me back into balance. And yes, you have to have an open mind for it. And I think that that's the main thing, because if you don't have an open mind for it, then you're not really wanting to heal. You have to want to heal. It is a choice. And if you go in there, you're like, oh, whatever, then you've shut yourself off.
Exactly. Can you explain to some of my audience members who've never even heard of it? I know I once said it to my mother or a friend, and they're like, what the heck is that? So just a Reiki 101 explanation would be great.
In layman terms, it's hands-on healing, but you can also do it from a distance where you just have a photograph of the person, or you have a teddy bear, which to you it symbolizes the person. But when it's hands-on healing, it's just the energy. The person is actually a conduit to the universal energies, because we are all energy. We're not just this massive blob of organism. We're energy. And so the energy flows through the practitioner to the client on the table, so to speak. And it will just help to not remove the blockages, but, allow for the energy to flow through the blockages so that they clear. That's what it does. But you have to remember, it doesn't matter what healing modality you decide to choose, you still have to do the work. There's only so much a practitioner can do for you. So if you feel great after a Reiki healing, remember not to slip into your old programming, your old conditioning. You have to keep working on yourself. But it is beautiful. Reiki is beautiful. It was a great entrance, an entree for me, so to speak. Yeah.
And so then where did you go from there once
I
you were
studied
in?
Reiki. Yes.
Tell us about some other things. I want to learn. I haven't
Oh,
experienced so many things. What to go to next?
I became an EFT blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
practitioner.
Okay. Tell everyone I know what it is, but maybe other people don't.
Yes. Emotional freedom technique. And it's very, very simple. You tap the emotions out of your system. So if you've suffered from trauma, then you tap the emotions out of your system by using several points of the body. And then you have a statement. Say very black and white, you're scared of spiders. And on 1 to 10, how scared are you of spiders? A person would say 10. And then you go, why? And then you'd get that with the statements, and it could be 5, 6, 7, I don't know, until it gets to like 1 or not, and they don't have that fear anymore, because fear is that beta blocker in the mind. We create that. When it's gone, it's very powerful, and I've seen it. My friend had an immense. She crossed over now. She's very young. She was 33, but she had this immense fear of slugs. And after it rained, oh my gosh, she would just run across the street. And that's how bad it was. It's just how she explained it. And I'm like, oh, what? She's got, they're naked, they're slimy, they're gooey.
Yeah, just don't go near them. And they won't bother you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then when I done it with her, she called me up when she's like, oh my God, it rained and I can just walk past the slides. It was kind of hilarious. But there was another person that she had suffered from trauma in her childhood because her parents had been fighting and she couldn't commit to her partner and she was very distant. So I had to go through several statements with her to why she felt that way and how could we improve that. And it went down to 0. And then several months later, she got married and she became pregnant. And she just couldn't believe how that had changed like that.
And like you said, though, you have to work on yourself. And I have always believed what you said in the beginning for many years, that I was a victim. I had that victim mentality. All of these things are happening to me and not taking any responsibility for how I was responding to all the things that happen. Because things, events, traumas, difficulties, that's the definition of life, right? Well, half the definition of life, let's say, it's going to happen. We really shouldn't be surprised. It's just, we don't know exactly what it's going to be and when it's going to be, but it's how we respond to those circumstances. And it's not like it's easy, but you do have to be all in, because it is a chore. It is a chore to look within. And I don't know why this just came up to me, but I was talking to somebody about journaling and how I just wrote it off. I can't do that. Journaling doesn't work for me. And I never opened myself up to I had just already decided, nope. And when you do that, of course, things aren't going to work. And it's not going to be a quick fix. And you can tell anyone to do the work, but if they don't do it, they can't be surprised that they don't get the results. Right?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a lifelong process, but it's so incredibly rewarding. And I lost track of my mind right there, because now I remember, as I'm rambling, I'm like, no, that's not what I wanted to say about it. What I was going to say was, I remember when I was working with a coach, and you'd like maybe have a workbook, and then at the end it would be like, okay, journal on these 2 questions. And I would say to myself, I don't really need to do that, because I didn't like journaling. So I'll skip that part, right? Because that part's too hard for me, or I don't feel good about that part. But in the end, who was I hurting? Myself.
Yes.
Yeah, because you got to do it, even though you don't like it or you don't think it has value. You gotta push through if you really want to make changes.
Yeah. That's your ego talking, right? That's your ego talking. But you made a very important point. It's, why is this happening? We always think this, why is this happening to me? I've thought it a lot too. Why is this happening to me? I deserve better in life. Why do people have to be that way towards me? Why can't I be happy? Why is my life so hard? But you have to look at it from a different perspective, rather than saying, why is this happening to me? What is it? How do I put this? Not why is this happening to me, but why is this happening for me?
Exactly.
And that's the difference. And I mean, for me, like I said, I soldiered on, but I was like, la, 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 la.
Yeah.
Starving myself, and I was just working like a maniac. That's what I was doing. And that's how I escaped my emotions that were haunting me. And that wasn't really helping, was it? So
no, for me, it was food, overeating, and, the comfort of that kind of thing when I didn't want to think about it or feel it or deal with it. So
Yeah.
like you said earlier, we all have something, it doesn't make a difference if it's food or crack cocaine or alcohol or, whatever. It all is there because we are looking for something to make us feel better. But it's only momentary, and takes that problem and then it adds another problem.
Yes, it does. It
Right?
absolutely does. And the one thing that I really have learned, I mean, I've learned a lot, but I'm still learning, is, yeah, indeed, you have to go within, but everything is energy. And when you understand that everything is energy, people always like, well, what do you mean everything is energy? Well, I will give this example. When you stand in the shower and it steams up and you wave your hand through the what do you call that in English? The
The
not the
steam. I
warmth,
mean, you
the
said
steam,
this.
the steam, kind of, it
Yeah.
moves. That's
Yes.
kind of energy. But everything stems from our mind. So what we create or what we think, we create. And we manifest that. And that's how powerful we are. How many people don't realize that? And once you realize that, it's like, oh, maybe I should kick all those negative people or all that negative self-talk out of my head and start to work on myself and have a different outlook on life.
That for me was key. That actually is my story because I never realized I could change what I was thinking. It just never occurred to me, I guess, because I never sat back to analyze what was happening. And I just assumed whatever went through my head was natural, so to speak, like it just happens. And when I realized, no, I have the ability to actually change what goes through my head and to stop letting that negative Nelly voice, tell me all these things and the victim mentality and all of that. And it's incredible how something that sounds so simple, but isn't simple to implement, right? Because how much do we have to, no matter how old we are, we have so much baggage that we need to overcome.
Yep.
But yeah, the fact that that's the key. I mean, to me, that's it. Okay, game over. That's all you have to do is just change your mindset and watch what happens.
Yes, that's about becoming aware of your experiences and becoming aware of how do I put it, aware of that you really want to change. It's like, oh, but I'm reacting the same way as I've always done. Maybe I should react differently.
And see what happens.
And I like that the saying in What the Bleep Do We Know, because I love quantum physics. Change your thinking, change your thinking, change your life. And Absolutely. It's really that simple. And people are like, yeah, but no, it's not. Oh, yes, it actually is. But you need to break down your experiences and look at it from every angle. And however you decide to heal, that's entirely up to you.
Tell us a little bit about what is the whole idea behind quantum physics.
Quantum physics
and manifestation and all of that.
So I love manifestation. So quantum physics is all about the energy, and it talks about it's all about where in What the Bleep Do We Know. And I love how they talk about this, where you have the little hypothalamus in your brain, this little mini factory, and it garners all your experiences and your reactions, and you have all these neuropeptides. And as soon as you, for instance, very black and white, you meet someone and you've been disappointed, you've been hurt, and it's like, oh, you meet someone, and it's like, it goes into the archives here, opens the archives. Oh, disappointment and hurt, boof, and it travels to these neuropeptides, ding dong, and it's like, oh no, thinking, no, I don't want to get hurt again, rather than being open. That's how it works, because we don't alchemize our traumatic experiences. We keep them all in the archives of our mind, and it's like everything's bulging to the seams. It's like when we have too much in our home, when we clutter our home, it's a direct reflection of how much clutter is in our head. It's the same thing. And if you were to get rid of all that baggage in your head, yeah, just like you were to get rid of all the baggage or the clutter in your home, you feel a lot better because you can breathe easier and you have so much more clarity and focus.
Funny, I was just telling my 22-year-old son who struggles with mental illness, so depression and anxiety and some other issues.
Yeah.
And I just said to him, if we could only clean up your environment, I'm pointing, upstairs in your room. He's got he has a room and then he has a bathroom. And then there's another room that used to be like when they were younger, the video room. So now that's also his room. So those rooms, I just close the door and can't even bear it. And when I have to open the door to look what's inside, I am horrified. And I said to him, you know what? You don't realize it. This would be a huge step because his mind is always racing. He spends so much time sitting there in that clutter, and it's just extremely, extremely unhealthy. And he uses marijuana to try and deal with his pain. But anyway, I don't need to go down my son's road. I'm sure he's not appreciating that if he listens, but just the point that, I did that here as well in my house for a very long time. It wasn't cluttered like a hoarder, but there was a lot of stuff and it felt like nothing. I was uncomfortable looking at the rooms and having somebody else walk into my house and look at my rooms because everything seemed to be not a mess, but kind of just out of order. And when I changed it, wow, just the feeling, the difference of what I feel now walking into my house compared to what I used to feel like when everything was out of control is night and day. Yeah. Night and day. It sets the tone for everything. And I never understood that connection.
Just coming back on that, on your son, and I have a sister who has walked down the wrong path. But everyone in our lives that we come across that walk on our paths or only partially on our paths, or family members, they're all beautiful reflections to things that we need to see or things that we need to heal. And for some people, they understand that. And for others, they don't. They walk around with blinkers. And we can't help them unless they help themselves. You know the old saying, you can drag a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. And eventually, it may take years before people decide to change, but that's entirely up to them. We can only do the work for ourselves. And once we do the work for ourselves and people see that change within us, all we can do is be that beacon of light and be that inspiration.
That really hits home because I just recently kind of forced him to do a therapy program. And it was clear that he was angry because I forced him. And so he was not getting any benefit out of it. And, might have been a little bit easier when he's 6, 7, 8 years old, but at 22, it's not happening. And I let it go and said, he's going to have to come to it on his own. But it's very difficult as a parent to watch, especially because I'm very solution oriented. So for his 22 years, I'm always like, okay, here's the next thing we're going to try. Here's the next thing we're going to try. I dragged that kid to so many different places, therapies when he was younger. It was ridiculous. So, I've got to realize it won't work. As soon as he's ready, it's going to work. But he has to be ready, and I can't get him there. And I think what you're saying is so true. And it's actually my why of why I'm doing what I'm doing now is to be able to show both my sons that regardless of how old you are, regardless of your traumas, you always have the power to design the life that you know, that you want.
Yes. Yes.
And it's, I think they're starting to see. I'm hoping that they are. I do think they're starting, but it's just the start. It's another thing to have to embrace that on your own, and especially at a young age, if you're going through a tough time. I think where I was at that age, and it's hard, like almost 40 years difference between me and them, thinking that's 40 years is a long time ago. I don't remember what I was thinking or doing then. So it's hard to put myself in that position. But anyhow, I'm rambling. All right. So tell me, I would like to know what you do as a light empowerment coach, divine channel, and light language healer. Can you give me some explanations of what that means?
I won't say it in German language, but yes. Well, divine channel, I mean, I channel the many masters, the archangels, if you will. I work a lot with the Ascended Master Saint Germain, actually. And it was a very much a healing process for me too, by the way, channeling with them. Now I do it for other people, but it's also in my book, and they really are here to help humanity, and it's really about overcoming your own, our traumas that we go through. And they always say, why do you suffer so much? You are love at your core. And life is all about a return to love, nothing more, nothing less. But it's not that simple when we are raised according to the conditioning within this societal paradigm. It's like we're so far removed from our true nature. And so yeah, I channel a lot of messages. Even I talk about fear, about mental health, mental illness, drug abuse. I talk about the fact that about the fact that there is no death, because at the end of the day, when we leave, so to speak, when we leave the earthly planes, we cross over. Our soul remains intact because we're energy. It's just our physical garment can't support us any longer because we've worn it out. It's worn, and it's wear and tear.
Right.
And so eventually we gotta go. But yeah, and as a light language healer, I talk funny language. It's like minion language. And yes, I mean, I'm happy to do a short demo, and it's very, very powerful because I speak that funny language, but your mind may not comprehend it, doesn't need to comprehend it. On a soul level, your soul comprehends it. And it's like just healing just starts to flow. Every time I do this, I'm always very, very humbled, Debbie, because it's not me, it's them from up there in the other universe, or multidimensional universe, as I always call it. And I work with many, many light beings, so many of the galactics. And I've had it done to myself, and it's been very healing for me on the physical at the time, but also the emotional. And if I really need a tune up, I always go to my, one of my favorite healers here in the UK, Louise Rhodes. And yeah, she's just amazing. So that's what I do. It's very new. It's more common in the US, light language healing, than it is in the UK.
Yeah, I've never heard of it before. So it sounds.
So you want a demo?
Sure.
Do you think listeners want a demo? They'll be like, "Whoa, this crazy woman! What is this?"
No, I think that's a really good way to end, because you know what, part of what my goal is with this podcast is to let people be aware there's another way and take control of your life. But it's also to educate on things that we don't usually come in contact with. And maybe it's something, right? And maybe it's something that could help you or you find interesting. But if you don't know it's out there, you're never going to find it. So no, let's do a short demo. That would be wonderful. I'm so curious.
So what do we want to focus on? What's the intent, do you think, for your listeners? Working on fear, more clarity, more focus, peace, happiness?
How about we do fear? Because I feel like all of us, right? Fear stops us from doing so many different things. And
fear is the cookie monster, as I
it
say. Fear
is
is the
the
cookie
cookie
monster.
monster. I like that.
Like a little culpable cookie monster, yes.
So
Okay,
let's go with that.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes.
Okay.
And just take a very deep breath in. And just hold it. And gently breathe out. And take another very deep breath in. Hold it. And breathe out. And just gently keep breathing in and out. And just relax. And I will bring through the light codes pertaining to fear. And all I want you to do is just listen to them and allow them to flow through you. That's it. Hushia makahina kasikutui masikitali yamakutushi ha. Tushi nikiti itikatuya malahati ueaha. Hushikiti ati nimikitasa huimi haha. Hushi kala maikiti yama hushkia yupititi yamaisikiti yama hui piti atukiti yamaka. Hasikitini mati yama hatututu yimiti haha tishimilaha ui. Kuchila hi puchi. It's just saying this. It's like flowing through the waters of yourself and allowing for that fear to dissipate and be replaced by pure joy, that joy of that inner child. Susila hayinikiti amahlasikiti nikiti ititi malakati ushikine asi I. Kuinisi alakatui mahatikita anikita sali alalui apakatututi malakata. Usinikitila ha tushia liama kuhia mahisiki ayu kuimi asaki yalalaimio uikaim tushinia ha. And I gently retreat and just take another very deep breath in and gently breathe out. And when you're ready, just open your eyes.
I can barely speak. That's how I feel. As you were saying what does sound like gibberish, I felt, that tingling, that electricity feeling flowing through my body.
Yeah.
And also extremely relaxed. I feel extremely relaxed. I hope if you're driving, you didn't just close your eyes while you were driving. If you're listening to this, please come back and try it again when you're sitting down. So now you go through this, and so for everybody, it might be a certain number of times or sessions or whatnot until you start to feel the effects. I'm guessing everybody's different, that it's individual.
One session, you start to feel it. So this is very much what I call Lemurian energy. So prior to the Atlantean times with the mermen and the mermaids, very gentle energy.
Beautiful.
Normally I will do sessions of like 45 minutes to an hour. Yeah. And I love it. I absolutely love it because do you know what, Debbie? It's amazing what it does for clients, but it also works for me. It also has benefits for me when I channel for them.
Sure. Oh, wow. Amazing. All right. So as we finish up, let me ask you one more question. And maybe you've already answered this. What is the favorite thing about what you do now? What do you love the most? What
do I love the most? Well, I'm moving. So that's great. I'm moving to Spain.
Yes. Congratulations on that.
I My favorite thing is just that when I help people, it's not like I'm fixing them. That there's a big difference.
Yep.
I'm just a tool in the toolbox. I always make that very clear. But I love how I see them progress and just change in a matter of weeks, even. And it's just beautiful to see. It's really beautiful to see them going from from one extreme to the
Yes.
other extreme. Yes, it is. And it's not like, hey, you know what? I can heal. They up there, they
Yeah.
don't heal all the physical ailments, because sometimes you still have to figure it out.
Of
There are
course.
certain pieces of the puzzle to your life that you still need to figure out.
Yep. Totally agree. All right. So as we finish, all of these things will be in the show notes, but tell everybody where they can reach you, what the name of your book is, and all the things.
Yes, the name of my book is Becoming Authentically Me and is available on Amazon worldwide. And I'm on Instagram under Universal Light Warriors, and on YouTube under Power Soul Healing, where I need to do that when I have some time this weekend. Do another light language healing, because I do put light language healing sessions on there. And sometimes it'll be for anxiety or even fear, or just, like I said, inner peace, just whatever is necessary. And people can just plug in their earphones and listen to it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, Birgitta, it has been just such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it, and for opening our eyes and our minds to the different types of healing, powerful healing techniques that are out there. And your story is incredible. So kudos to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Debbie. And I just want to say, for those listeners that are really struggling, don't think that you are alone, but just know that we love you.
Perfect. All right, everyone. See you next time.